Hello beautiful people of the internet, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and I'm so excited that you've joined me today. For today's video, we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of February. This is a little bit later than I normally film my wrap-ups, so it's a little bit later in March when you're seeing this, but hopefully you're still interested in the books that I read in February because I've got a lot to say. We really started the year off strong in January. I had a lot of 5-star reads in the month of January, but I knew it was too good to stay true, so the month of February was kind of iffy. It was going really well, and then it wasn't. I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I've seen a lot of people do this, and I really like this setup. I'm going to start with my lowest rated books first, and then we're going to go all the way to my highest rated books. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this wrap up started. Let's talk about my DNFs for the month. Guys, if this tells you anything at all, I DNF'd 3 books this month. I never DNF books. I always push through no matter what, and I just was on the DNF train this month for some reason, and I DNF'd 3 books. The first book I DNF'd was Mile High, and this is by Liz Tomford. I feel like I'm not on the island by myself. I really don't think I am, because I think a lot of people have mixed feelings about this one. Okay, this one is following our main character, Stevie, and Stevie is a flight attendant for this hockey team, and basically she just caters to their every need. The male main character, we get introduced to him, and he is just a treat. I have forgotten his name. I don't really care to remember his name. We're just gonna leave it at that. This male main character was the most insufferable male main character that I have ever read. And I'm gonna let you know that I had hope for this female main character because she was really just strong and independent, and she was not taking any of his crap. But about 40% in, she started taking it, and I was just like, I thought you were gonna be different. I thought you were gonna be different. This male main character thought that he was God's gift to the green earth, and I do not appreciate that in men whatsoever. I've seen it in real life, I've seen it in movies, I've seen it wherever, and I do not appreciate that trait in men in any sort of form. So I did not like this male main character. I did not care for their romance, and even if this book got better, I didn't want any part of it. So I'm so sorry to those of you who really love this series and this book. I may continue in this series because I hear that it gets better, but for right now, it's a no for me. The next book I DNF'd was A Brush with Love, and I do not remember who this is by, but I will leave a picture of it on the screen. And I do not have this currently with me because I've already unhauled it. I have one thing to say to you, and that is the reason why I DNF'd it. 9% into the book, I think that was like 40 or 50 pages, they were already in love and in bed together. Can you name a greater ick? No thanks. And to the last book that I DNF'd, and I want this to be loud and clear, I soft DNF'd this book. I will be picking this book up in the future. I did leave it on my shelves, I didn't unhaul it, and I soft DNF'd it because I know a lot of people love this one, and I have the potential to really love this one, and that is Anatomy: A Love Story. And the reason that I DNF'd this one is because at this current moment in my life, I'm having some health scares, and I have some potential to be poked and prodded in a medical sense. So I do not want to be reading about all of those things because this one got pretty graphic in a medical sense, and I just wasn't loving that. It was kind of a lot for me right now. So I just kind of put it down, and I will eventually go back to it. Okay, that's all for the DNFs. Let's talk about 1 stars. I gave one book 1 star, and if you watch my most recent vlog, then you already know the book that I gave 1 star, and that is The Crash by Frida McFadden. And it so saddens me to tell you guys that this was a 1-star book for me because this was one of my most anticipated reads of the entire year, and to think that I hated it so much really makes me sad. So I do want this to be a disclaimer, okay? The reason that I hated this book so much is from a personal standpoint. So if you read this book and you absolutely love it, I promise you, I'm not going to look down on you or think anything of you. This is from a personal standpoint of where I'm at in my life, and I did not like this book. Basically, this book follows our main character who gets into a crash, and she is found by this big burly man who then rescues her and takes her back to be nursed by his wife. I did talk about it in that vlog, and I promise you I'm not going to be a dead horse, but there were quite a few sensitive topics thrown in this book, and I feel like, at least from an outside point looking in, I think that Freida McFadden used those just for emotional appeal alone, and I didn't appreciate it. Again, it's coming from a personal standpoint, it's coming from a personal place, so don't just take my opinion with a grain of salt. I'm gonna be quite honest, I feel like the average person would really love this book, but it wasn't for me. All right, I did not give any books 2 stars this month. I feel like that's a win. So let's go ahead and move into 3-star books. My first 3-star book of the month was Dim Sum of All Fears, and this is by Vivian Chin. This is book number 2 in the Noodle Shop Mystery series. My book club, Comfy Cozy, is reading through the entire series this year, and this was the book number 2. What I am finding with this series is that it is playing out like a big soap opera. And I find that some people either really love that or they're really just over it, which I completely understand, but I am here for all of the drama. I feel like a lot of these characters are just over the top and messy and chaotic, and I'm kind of living for it. This one I did give a solid 3 stars because, again, it was just mostly drama and there wasn't a ton of plot. Like, we were obviously following a murder and trying to figure out what's going on, but at the same time, it was just a lot of drama. So this one was not my favorite in the series so far, but it was a solid good read. You know what I just realized? I have not been holding up any of these books. Why? I own most of them. Actually, no, that's probably a lie. I owned Dim Sum of All Fears. It's over there, but I didn't get it. Let's start actually holding up some books. My next read was a 3.5 stars, and that is The Match by Sarah Adams. I actually read this for my book club, Comfy Cozy. This was our February book pick, and I really, really enjoyed reading this book with my book club, and I think a lot of people found Sarah Adams through this book. So this book was a 3.5 for me. If you know anything about Sarah Adams, she is a very fluffy romance writer. Her romances are very sweet and they're very wholesome and they just feel like a big warm hug. And this is exactly what this one felt like to me. But I will say this is one of her earlier books, and from being someone who has read her most recent stuff, it is definitely very different to go into one of her first releases just because I feel like she has grown so much as an author and you can definitely tell. So I think that her newer stuff is right where it's at, and maybe if you're not enjoying her newer stuff, check out her backlist because I've heard some people don't like her newer stuff and really enjoyed this one. So you could be opposite from me, but I gave this one 3.5 just because I felt like there were some issues with it, but overall a really solid romance. If you are interested in anything that we had to discuss about this book, or if you are interested in reading it, I would definitely encourage you to go back and rewatch the discussion we did on it. It is under the live tab on my channel. And let's talk about my 3.75 star, and that's Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. I know it really pains me to say that this was a 3.75 stars because if you've been here for any amount of time, then you know that I absolutely adore Alice Feeney. Some of her works are some of my favorites of all time, and I just adore Alice Feeney so much. This is her most recent release, and I was really excited going into this one. And I will say this was a very different thriller that I've ever read by Alice Feeney, and it was kind of slow at some parts. The basic premise is that it's following this man who has lost his wife. The last time that he heard from her was he was on the phone with her, and she pulled over to help someone that was in the middle of the road, and she just disappeared off the face of the earth, and he's trying to find her, and it just follows him as he is on his journey to try and find out what happened to his wife, which I understand where she was going with that premise, and I really was captivated at most parts of this book. I tend to read more into things, and there was just something towards the end of this book that I did not I did not appreciate it, and I'm not going to go into details, I'm not going to go into all of that, but it just kind of seemed very obvious to me, and I didn't like that. So because of that, again, I do think it was a solid thriller. I think most people would really, really enjoy it. But for me, this wasn't my favorite Alice Feeney, which is kind of a letdown. But again, 3.75 is not bad. It's just not my favorite. Next, let's move on into the 4-star reads. And this one is very polarizing, okay guys, like not a lot of people love this book. And that is The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. I read this for my friend Jessie's readathon that she put on, which was the X's and O's readathon. This was the group buddy read. And a lot of people feel a lot of different ways about this book. So before I even pitch this book to you, I just want you to know that this is not a romance. Okay, this is more of a contemporary fiction about this man who has stood up 3 women. I think that's all I'm going to tell you about this book, because I don't want you to go into it with super high expectations, but at the same time, I just want you to know that if you ever go into this book and you're like, oh, I'm going to DNF this. This is boring. I don't like this. I don't understand what's going on. Finish it. The next book is a book that was probably more realistic, a 3.75, but I rounded it up to a 4, and that is In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. I will die on the hill that Ruth Ware's backlist is elite. This was one of her first releases, I'm pretty sure, and I can tell. I just really think her backlist is where it's at. So if you're not enjoying Ruth Ware's new stuff, I would highly recommend her backlist. In a Dark, Dark Wood is following our main character, Lenora, who is invited to a hen party, which is basically a bachelorette party, and she's really confused why she's invited because she's not super close to the people that invited her, and then murder takes place. In my humble opinion, I think that you cannot go wrong with Ruth Ware's backlist. Okay, let's get into the 4.5 stars. I gave one book 4.5, and that is Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams. This is the second book that I read by Sarah Adams this month, and if you cannot tell, I enjoyed this one a little bit more. And I have a funny short little story about this book. I went to pick it up on release day because I was so excited. This is book number 3 of the When in Rome series, and I knew I had to get it because obviously I love that series so much. And I went into the bookstore and I couldn't find it anywhere. And I asked the lady, I was like, do you have any of the Beg, Borrow, or Steal by Sarah Adams? I know you do. Don't you lie to me and tell me that you don't. And she's like, yeah, here's a couple on an end cap. And I was like, oh my gosh, yay. And I grabbed a book and I was walking around and I went to the like regular fiction section. In the fiction section, on the bottom shelf, those little sneaks had put signed copies of this book. Signed copies of this book on the bottom shelf. So I grabbed it. So let's talk about what it's about. So this is following the 3rd sister in the When in Rome series. The first book follows Noah, the brother, and then book 2 follows Annie, the sister, and then this is another sister named Emily. Emily is a more unlikable character, I will say. That I feel like a lot of people didn't love this one because they didn't like Emily. She's very uptight, she's very tense, she's got a lot going on. But I will say that I really loved this romance regardless of Emily's personality. I'm someone that can overlook that. And the male main character in this book was such a cinnamon roll that he made up for it. He was so cute. The reason that I did dock half a star is because I just feel like Sarah Adams is trying too hard. And let me tell you what I mean by that. She, up until this point, has been writing clean, closed-door romances. And guys, there are just some times when I want to pick up a clean, closed-door romance. And I don't have to worry about like skipping anything or if, like worrying about if it's just going to be too much. And I can go into a Sarah Adams and know that what I'm getting. And now, like especially with this one, I do feel like there were parts of it that were just completely lust-driven. And I didn't love that. I'm like, Sarah Adams, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? It just felt so forced. It felt like she was trying to write something that is not really her. I don't know. I feel like I'm not alone in that because it's very jarring to go into a Sarah Adams book and read spice. I don't know. It's just not my favorite thing to read in a Sarah Adams novel. That's just my humble opinion. I think that she's doing so well without adding anything. Guys, we're getting into my 5-star reads of the month. I am so excited to share. I have 3 5-star reads of the month. So let's talk about them. The first one, I finally went into Heartless Hunter, and this is by Kristen Cicerelli. And this has been on my radar ever since I have started picking up fantasy because a lot of people love this book. And I know why now. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I love this book with an unhealthy passion, and I am just as surprised as you are. I did not think I was gonna like this one. This one's all about a witch and a witch hunter, and they might fall for each other, and you're just watching this action go down, like running away and chasing each other, and it's like the best cat-mouse duo. I will say that there is a character in here that kind of ruins the vibe. I will say it with my full chest. He ruins the vibe. I'm not going to tell you who, but he ruins the vibe. Okay, he ruins it. Anyway, I loved this book so much. I will say, for those of you who are worried about the witchy element, worried about that it might be too dark or anything, I was also worried about that because I kind of side-eye witch books because I don't love going into them all the time. But this one, I say, was handled really well. There were a couple of times where Rune cast spells and things like that, and she needed blood for them, but it never once crossed a line for me, and that is so, so important. So I will say that I just really highly recommend this one. And yes, I already have read the sequel, and spoiler alert, it's so good. The next 5-star I gave was Reckless by Lauren Roberts. Nobody is surprised, not a single one. I also read this one in my most recent vlog, so I won't beat a dead horse. Please go watch that vlog if you are interested in my real-time thoughts about this book. This book didn't have a ton going on. This one is following our main characters, Peyton and Kai, which we meet in the first book, Powerless. If you've not read Powerless, obviously you can't go into this one because this one, yeah. And I just want you to know that if you're not prepared to get your heart ripped out, maybe stay clear. Actually, don't. With every ounce of my being, I want you to read these books. It was so hard for me to pick a favorite. It really was. It was so hard for me because those last 2 were so good and they hold such a special place in my heart. But I really do think this was my favorite book of the month. And it's definitely going to be one of my top of the year. And that is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. Guys, everybody knows what they're talking about. Okay, everybody who says that they've loved this book or loves this book, they know what they're talking about. Okay, they're not speaking lies to you. This is a good book. This is a solid, good book. And again, there will be signs to show that Hannah loved a book. I fear I am a very simple creature. This book is following our main character, Clementine, and Clementine has just lost her aunt, and she inherits her aunt's apartment, and she goes into her aunt's apartment, and there's a guy there, and he is just sweet as sugar, and he has the most cute accent, and he is just the best. He's the best, and he's just sitting at the table being like, what's up? And Clementine's like, hello, this is my apartment. And he said, well, this is my apartment, but I'm actually from 7 years in the past. So these two fall in love, but they're not in the same universe. So good. It was so good. He calls her Lemon. He calls her Lemon. There have been many nicknames that I have loved. Okay. Lemon? Are you actually kidding me? This is probably more of a 6-star if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. And there you have it, my friends. Those are the 10 books that I read in the month of February. 13 if you're counting DNFs. There were 13 books in my presence this month. 3 of them did not work out, but 10 of them did. Well, sort of, kind of. If you made it this far into the video, please leave me a lemon emoji. Fill my comment section with lemons. Because isn't that the cutest nickname you've ever heard in your life? And until next time, my friends, remember this world is a better place with you in it, and I love you so much. I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.